My guest today is Dr. Daniel Bender. He's a computer science expert and he's a technology visionary. Dr. Daniels has Bender has spent his career leveraging technology for good. He previously led the deep learning team at Tomra, where he transformed industries like food, mining, and recycling with cutting edge AI sensor based sorting machines. He's on a mission to make generative AI accessible to everyone, including helping individuals boost their productivity and embrace innovation in everyday life. So, thank you for making yourself available and taking the time with me here. And Saturday Idea Labs, from my perspective, I'm trying to take a everyday person's point of view and trying to make sense of uh, the kind of innovations and the thoughts of thought leaders in a lot of these different areas. So I appreciate you taking the time with us.
Yeah, thanks for the invitation, Aaron. I totally love the subtitle "Lawn Party Vibes." Reminds
Let,
me of a time long, long ago.
well, it doesn't have to be long ago because I figured we're grown-ups and we have the keys to the internet now and we can make it whatever we want. So my vision was to try to get people together in spaces to hang out and try stuff. That's For me personally, it's really easy to spend a lot of time in my head thinking, overthinking, and over planning. I never get around to trying stuff, but if I can get together with other people, we can actually just try stuff, and it doesn't have to be. Usually, I'm waiting for a polished product that never arrives because I'm
hmm
only over planning in solo. So, with a space like this and a time like this, I just want to help be a catalyst for people uh, to try things in an unpressured way and talk about them and see what things come out of it. So thank you also for the waiting patiently for me to be available for this because I reached out to you asking if you'd come on with me, but then my next availability was at least a month away. So I had the Second Brain Summit, and also I attended what's called the Autodesk University Summit last weekend. So I've been
hmm
packed away busy on different things, but there's a lot of convergence and ideas that I heard over the last month here that I haven't had time to unpack yet.
Already a short recap of the summit. What was your impression? How did you experience it?
As far as how was the Second Brain Summit?
Yes,
Oh, it was
from your
fantastic.
perspective. So your impressions, maybe the best takeaway. So.
I think that there was, I don't know if it was intentional. It could have been intentional, but there was definitely a convergence of theme around. I think the focal point could be kind of summed up with Anne Laurie from Nest Labs, and she's preparing to put out her book Tiny Experiments.
hmm
And for
Let
me,
me
that kind of
pre-order it.
I'm already on the pre-order myself, but
Yeah.
the theme of the book Tiny Experiments is getting away from linear planning, linear long-term planning towards a single successful goal that's ill-defined, and taking it back into scientific method of making tiny experiments to get to that same endpoint without predefining what it's going to look like at the end.
hmm
And so I found that very useful because usually we think science is reserved for the scientists and the rest of us don't. We just do other things. But using that approach for everyone engaging in the process of making tiny experiments can hopefully reset our expectations along the way and make us more open to learning and seeing things as we allow the end goal possibly to change as we
hmm
encounter new information the way a scientist would.
Yeah, nice.
And so, go
How
ahead.
you phrased it somehow reminds me of the small bets community I'm in. I'm not sure if that's known to you, by Daniel Vassallo.
That I have seen information on that, but I haven't delved as deeply as I'd like to into that
Yeah.
topic. So I'll look forward to adding that to my ever growing reading list. But it's something I struggle with. I'll sit in my head and plan for very long periods of time, and you can start to mistake planning and thinking for actual progress. That if you're
hmm
still sitting still in one place without actually doing anything, and you couple that with waiting for perfection and not allowing yourself to work messy, it's a bad place to be in. So short story made too long there. That for me seemed to be a focal point kind of theme that a lot of the other speakers really meshed well with that type of
Hmm.
thinking. And that for me, that was the Anne Laurie's her session was kind of like the action call for me. And then so many of the other speakers, their materials were able to feed in for me and augment that. So we're also running some experiments along the side to try to the Tana code experiment. Am I mirrored right now? Is my shirt coming through backwards?
Yes.
Oh, my shirt's coming through backwards. Okay, well
Oh,
I
I
gotta.
can't read it. It's mirror for me. Yes.
All right, well I'm gonna fix that real quick because I can do that. All
Yeah.
right, now it can be, yeah, the Tana code
Hmm.
experiment. Myself and Fitz Fraga are running
Hmm.
our own kind of side experiment where we want to try to extend the conference and try to carry people's notes into a knowledge graph using Tana to expand upon what everyone remembered from their different breakout sessions, and then try to cross reference notes and try to create a shared environment like that. So I'm also trying to run tiny experiments of that experiment to try to see what would actually make that work and what would it look like to have a collaborative knowledge graph happen where it's like shared knowledge management SKM instead of personal knowledge management PKM. So lots of interesting things to think about and work on with a very limited amount of time. So
Yeah, sounds really cool.
yeah.
But yeah, shared knowledge management is a totally different beast, I think, than the personal, where you can get messy, find your stuff because it's your notes. And when I remember back to the second, no, the building a second brain cohort from Tiago, there was somehow a side topic. People were asking it over and over how to do it in a company with my colleagues. And I think Tiago Forte is now going deeper into that direction and
Mhm.
trying to bring a solution for, yeah, people working together and not personal but shared knowledge management.
Yeah, I think some of it can be pretty simple, but like the first examples I really see of it is something as simple as just a collaborative uh, edits of a shared document, whether you're using Word or Microsoft
Mhm.
or Google Docs or something like that. The fact that people can have their own individual highlights with comments and having that meta layer, kind of like shared margin notes. If everyone had this this magical copy of the same book that they're writing notes in the margins about a topic and they're seeing what other people wrote as margin notes, is that without trying to make it too technical, that's really what I want to see happen. Is I want to see the magic of seeing what other people thought about a passage of thing and then
Mhm.
respond back to them about their comment, and having a dialogue layer on top of content.
Yeah.
And we're trying to see if we can use Tana to do that, and then we'll try to make
Okay.
observations of the findings
Yeah.
and and see what happens.
But I think that is specific enough to yeah, to make it smaller, make it tiny. So it's not working together on some output, but having that reflection area on top of a document or whatever piece of content. I think
Yeah,
that's good.
yeah. I mean, it started with a selfish desire in that they gave us an impossible choice between breakout sessions. Like I have to choose between it's like hearing something from Sonke
Hmm.
Aarons, who's there in person, or Nick Milo. It's like, how am you guys? That's not fair. You can't make me choose between those. So it's like, all right, so you're going to go to that one, and I want to see your notes, and I'm going to show you my notes, and we're going to.
Hmm.
I'll try to be in multiple places at once, and that's what kind of triggered that. So anyway,
Oh, nice.
that's my side project, or my side project right now among my other side
That is
projects.
one of your tiny experiments you want to phrase, right?
Well, that's the problem is I need to learn how to keep them tiny because
Yeah.
I start three huge experiments and I need to learn to start tiny experiments. So that's what I need to work on.
Nice.
So you and I had talked earlier, and we had come up with some topics that we wanted that like were going to be kind of kickoff points, and would I wanted to kind of showcase your work and the things that you're interested in sharing with people, and and see where that goes. But I wanted to stop for a second and just kind of ask you, because uh, not everyone had heard. Well, no one had heard what we talked about because it had been a private call. But what you're kind of in a transition now. You've done some pretty interesting, groundbreaking work in machine learning, and you're turning to an educational track
Mhm.
now and trying to make generative AI. Try that again. Trying to make generative AI accessible to everyday people. So, what's your vision? What's your passion right now for the things that you want to do? What are your aspirations and things that
Yeah,
you want people to know?
yeah. So it's it's a little bit, yeah, not really started with ChatGPT, but that was maybe the big moment for everyone or more people to realize even before AI in the generative space was making things possible, which for a long time were, yeah, more or less a dream. So I worked in that space for understanding images with AI, but generating text and making sense of that was not possible in that time. And yeah, most likely like you and other people, I was then starting to use ChatGPT more and more, and we're seeing the magic in it. And I think it can help in multiple areas of your life. One example, you already said it, was you cannot be in the same time for two talks you're interested in. Maybe no, yeah, for sure different, but some are related. I cannot read all the books I'm interested in
Yeah,
because it's taking multiple hours to read a book, at least for me. And with AI, I can make a better selection. I can somehow map it to my interests and somehow looking for a system which is guiding me to select the right content, and then maybe even understand it in an easier and better way.
I think that's a big part of it too. Is that for one thing, if it only takes you a couple hours to read a book, then you're doing a lot better than me. It might take me a couple days. So kudos there. But also, not only the time to read through and pass your eyes over a book, but to capture your takeaways in a way that will stay persistent, so that you'll actually remember the important parts of what you read and be able to apply them.
Yeah.
Because I'll have a lot of times where I'm like, oh yeah, I read that book. Well, what were the key points? It's like, I can't tell you, but I really thought it was good. I really I
Mhm.
really liked it.
Yeah.
So as you're talking, I'm thinking of not only how could GPT compress it, but how could it help me hold on to the parts that at that time seemed really important or useful for something I wanted to think about.
Yeah. There was just in your wording, there was one important phrase at that time. Because reading a book today will be, for me, totally different than reading a book in a year, because I have different questions in my mind,
Mm.
different things I think which might be important, different challenges, and that will also differ and yeah, make the reading experience different. Because like you said, when I'm talking about reading, it's not about fiction books. It's about, let's call them self-help books. So I want something to learn. I want to grow. I want to, yeah, somehow improve. And most likely, I'm just looking for some insights, and that can be one small thing. Um, and yeah, that is then the goal, to extract that. And I'm exploring that also then with AI right now, and that is also what we will have a look later, at least some glimpses of what might be possible in the near future, or to some extent already is, but it will just improve from today.
Yeah, that's great. So you had a pretty in depth. You had some pretty in depth scientific and technology projects that you're working on, and you start. So, what made you decide that you wanted to move to the educational track outside
Mhm.
of outside of your own research? Like, what is it? What is it that you're envisioning for people?
It's yeah, the possibilities which are more or less endless. I understand to some extent, so for sure not in all the details, the technology behind it. I see what's possible. I think it will change everything, and yeah, it's a new challenge. And educating others, or at least breaking down ideas to talk in others in a way that they can learn from that was always something which I was looking forward to. And yeah, so I made that decision and jumped into it, especially with the new possibilities. It's a little bit like a gold fever. So everyone is trying to find new ways, new tools, and learns. And I think there is a lot to cover. And
Yeah. So you mentioned everyone is trying to get on it. I just went to a conference that everything had an AI sticker on the end of it. Everybody was talking about AI, especially the C-level keynote speakers. And it's like, and
good point. Yeah.
I didn't feel like they were talking to me. I felt like they were talking to their shareholders. And it,
Hmm.
there's shit. I when I'm sure it's like this for you too. Is that when AI
Hmm.
first started becoming you start seeing Sam Altman in the news and things like that, and we start getting on the early part of the bell curve. I was really excited, and no one was talking about AI. That it wasn't really in the public. It wasn't on the news. There weren't a lot of articles outside of our kind of subgroup of internet community. Now we're to the point that it's everywhere, and I don't think people really have a good I don't think people have any practical use cases yet, and I'm
Hmm.
anticipating we're going to hit the other end of the bell curve where people are calling it was the hype or the AI is overblown as far as it was a hoax, it was all just hype, and so I've watched it go higher than I wanted to see it go, and I'm
Hmm.
anticipating we're going to get to that other side. So it's like, what what do you think people need to know or need to hear in order to engage appropriately with AI? Like it's more than just for making funny pictures, but it isn't a sentient uh, assistant like her right now. So
Hmm.
where do people need to
Yeah.
set their mind? Where do people need to put their mindsets and their expectations? And if they actually do want to get something useful out of it, where should they look, or where should
Yeah.
they go?
Super difficult because I'm not sure how far away are we from her, what we have seen in the movie, because the field is evolving so super fast. But
Yeah,
what you said is also totally true. Everyone is talking about it because you need to talk about AI to get money from shareholders, make them happy, and with that, for sure, we also have a lot of stuff which is not good. And I'm not sure if you are aware of the phrase snake oil.
yes, yes,
Yes,
and the
because
salesman, the,
yes,
the
exactly.
salesman of the snake oil. Yes.
And I think it's quite important to judge. And to some extent, I'm also kind of thinking about being a snake oil detector. So I'm not sure if that is a direction I want to go, but I already see what is possible today, at least with the shared resources. So we all don't know what is behind the curtain at OpenAI or Anthropic, what they
Yeah.
already can do. But the field is evolving super fast, and with that, it's really hard to judge what can be done with it. And you already mentioned it in the beginning of the show, the rule number one from Ethan Mollick: always invite AI to the party. And I think that is quite good if you want to see what's possible. So you have to try it, and maybe it works. That's great because then you can move faster. You have automated something which was before taking more of your time. And if it's not working, you see what is the limit today, and you can test at a later point in time if that did change.
I think that, well, for one thing, I mentioned. Ethan Mollick's book Co-Intelligence almost as if I was getting commissions off the sales of the thing, because
Mhm.
it, for me, of the things I've read, it seems to be the most practical uh, and well informed kind of guides on where we are at the moment. Um,
Mhm.
so I mention that all the time because there's so many useful pieces in it. Have you read any other authors that are in that same caliber of foresight right now for a practical person's guide for getting a handle? Because I'm looking for
Mhm.
other books to read and recommend as well.
Thinking about that question,
If
uh,
nothing comes to mind, we'll come back to it. Maybe we can search
uh,
for it and find some more together.
yeah, I also wanted to highlight that that we can look for books related to that, and maybe that is then showing me something which I have read. But my current recommendation is also Ethan Mollick if someone is asking me about what is happening in the space.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm not sure if it's already a good time, but I could share my screen and show then one example with the Ethan Mollick book, how to yeah, maybe chat with the book instead of reading it completely.
Yeah. Do you
We
want to do
cannot.
that first? Because I don't have an agenda here. I pulled up.
Yeah.
I didn't want to show these yet because I didn't want to guide. I didn't want to. No, I did show them.
Mhm.
You weren't on the air yet, but I
Yeah.
pulled up the topics that you and I had prep talked about. But I want to leave it open to you for how you want to use the time and just kind of see where it flows.
Mhm.
But I would, if you want to share your screen, I'd love to see
Okay.
that
Then
concept. So let me set the table a little bit. We talked about um, Chat GPT to help read a book, and that's a subject of great interest to me. I was even wondering if GPT might be a new file extension at the end when you order a book in Kindle audio or GPT. I would love to see something like that happen. And when you hit your screen share, we'll pull yours up here, and it'll take me a second to produce off that. And now, can you zoom in just a little bit more as well? I think we're going
I
to have a
already did, but I can do
okay,
more.
just a little bit more if you can.
Um, sure.
Okay.
So save it. Can do even more. Whatever you like, Aaron.
Yeah, whatever. Just as much as you can. If that's the highlight, we'll go with that. Yeah, that looks
No.
good there. I think that'll
Okay.
come through on video. Great. So,
Yeah.
what are we looking at here?
We're looking at a coding editor. So my
Okay.
background is coding. But in the last job, I didn't code much because it was going more in the management direction.
Mm-hmm.
Nevertheless, I'm still used to yeah, working with the command line and also code editors.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone is in the moment hyped about Cursor. So you might have heard that, even if you're not coding. That is the go-to editor, which is a spin-off or fork of Visual Studio Code, which is the main coding tool everyone is using since a couple of years from Microsoft. And then there were a couple of guys which were forking that, so making a copy and then building stuff on top, which is better suited for AI-assisted programming.
Okay.
And what we see right here, it's called that. Let's see about that. So it's just
So
these
we're looking at
three
Zed.
letters.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's not Cursor. It's that. It's an open source project, but not a tiny one. So you already mentioned GitHub before. This project has more than 30K stars on GitHub, and that is already some indicator of being not a small or unknown project.
Okay.
And these people did before another editor called Atom, which I also used, and now they have that. And in August this year, they added that AI. And so it's an AI-assisted coding editor. But what we will see right now, you can also use it for text file editing or Markdown. And I use Logseq as my note-taking application.
Okay.
And I just slide it in. Now you should see it. And you see one page called My Favorite Problems, and it's having here a list. In the end, it's just a file on my disk in the Markdown format, and I can open that file in that, which in the end I did here. So it's not looking super nice because somehow Logseq is not having the best syntax. It's adding, because of the numbers I have, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's
Hmm.
adding Logseq ordered list type number, which is not super cool. But
So you're
nevertheless,
using so you're
yeah,
using Logseq as your day-to-day
yes,
note and journaling and kind of
yes.
thinking process, and then you'll copy things into Zed to do some type of work with them.
Some are different, not copying. I'm just opening the file. In the end, I can go to the three dots here and then say open with default app. And then the same file is opened here. So I
Because it's based
can
on a text file. That
exactly. So if I
right? Yeah.
change something here, or maybe we do it in here, then we see it updated on the left. And
Okay.
on the
Yeah. So
left, I can remove it again, but then I have to save it here. And then we also see vanishing it on the right normally.
okay.
Now
So
it
what does
didn't.
Zed allow you to do with your notes?
Yeah. I can edit stuff. For example, here now I have the numbers, but I don't like the numbers. I want to have a bulleted list, and maybe that's somehow possible in Logseq.
Hmm.
But in the end, I can just edit the text file. So, for example, I maybe make that no, we make it half screen again. I mark that, then I go for the search or the find command. I go for the replace. I add. No, that's wrong. Copy. And so once again, I search for something and I search for this phrase and I want to replace it with nothing. And now I do that and then you see it's removed. I press save. And then in the end, on the right, we also see the stuff was changed. So I can edit things in that and have it then reflected in my Logseq graph, which normally is my, yeah, like you already stated, my day-to-day note-taking tool,
Hmm.
where I write down any thoughts in the daily journal and also build other pages.
Okay. So
But
it allows you to fine tune some of the
mhm,
editing things like that. But I'm sure it'll do some much more powerful things as well, right?
exactly, because Tana has way more AI integration as Logseq, and I use it also as my AI backend, and we will also have a look at that right now.
Oh, great.
Make that full screen again, and now I will show you some of the AI features which are integrated. So I press that button in the bottom right, and then I get the assistant panel. In the upper area, we can choose one of multiple models. So most models just need an API key, and then you pay per usage. So you don't pay that $20 a month, which we're all used to somehow right now. But we pay per usage, and if you don't use it much, you pay not a lot, only a fraction of a dollar. In the end,
Just
it's only
on that
cents.
note, yeah,
Yes,
on that note, I've heard talk that $20 a month is going to increase. That
I
there
know.
are there are financial problems or
Mhm,
financial challenges at OpenAI that may lead to even higher increased costs. So
yeah.
having something like per token pricing
Mhm.
is kind of nice right now, but it may be essential if they raise it to $40 a month. I don't know who's gonna do that.
And there are people who have not one subscription like I do. So in the moment, I only have the ChatGPT one, but there are people who have the Anthropic one, the OpenAI one, Perplexity. So they pay $100 a month to have
Right.
access to all of the state of the art AI chat tools.
Yeah.
But if you use Claude from Anthropic, you might know that 3.5 Sonnet is the current state of the art model they have. And it's quite competitive compared to the OpenAI GPT 4.0. And one cool thing is you can use that right now for free. So that might change or will change for sure in the future. But if you log in with your GitHub account, then you have that profile picture in the upper area, and then you can use Claude 3.5 Sonnet, which we do. And what's also is nice, the context window of Claude is quite large with 200K. ChatGPT or GPT-4o has 128K. And yeah, the only model which is bigger right now is Gemini from Google, where you get 1 million or even in some versions up to 2 million. And that is multiple books. We can also have a look at that later. But
So that's the context for it. That that memory size, it dictates what we'll be able to ask questions about, because that's what contains our prompt.
yeah, so if you have a long question, and in the end we will also see quite soon that you can add the complete book from Ethan Mollick as background knowledge, and then we see also how much tokens that are. 100 tokens are 75 words. That is the rule of thumb.
Say that again.
But
100 tokens is
one
how many
and
words?
75.
75 words, 100 tokens.
Yes. And in the end, we will then also see that the book is already eating context size, but there is still room left. So you can have 2 books and say, well, ask for similarities, differences. And that's also quite cool. We can also have a look at that later. But what I
Yeah.
wanted to show you first is with the book we both love from Ethan Mollick, and we know the 4 principles. I will prompt Claude as it is, and Claude is not having internet access, and the book was released quite recently, so it's from the middle of this year.
Right.
And I will just ask the question, what are the 4 principles? 4 principles in the book Co-Intelligence from Ethan Mollick. And then, yeah, as expected, it's saying it doesn't have access to it, and it's even saying, okay, to avoid any risk of reproducing copyrighted material, would need to research. In the end, we don't get a helpful answer.
And so I find some positive things in this outcome, because one of the problems with people using AI on the web is obviously hallucinations.
Good.
And so
Yeah.
getting a definitive answer to this tells me that you have it set up in a space where you're getting grounded generation. And that, so when I see something like this after my previous experiences, I'm actually relieved, because
Good.
I've already learned from looking at it that I can trust where the source is going to come from, and that it's set up to come from the internal source only, if that's what I'm looking for.
True, but in the end, there is still the chance that you get 4 principles which are totally made up, and you would
Yeah.
not know. So in the end, that answer is good, like you stated. If you know the 4 principles, you will be able to realize that is not what you're looking for. But if not, it might tell you a story which is totally hallucinated.
Right.
So in the end,
Okay.
exactly like you say, the answer is good. But also, like you said before, that's one of the reasons why you and also I like Perplexity. There you get links, you get sources, you can verify the information.
Right. Right.
And one thing I can now do, so normally if you know ChatGPT or Anthropic, you might, in some of them, you can then rephrase your question by adding something. For example, the question mark was missing here. That I can also do, but it's just a text, more or less in a text editor. So I
Yeah.
can remove now the complete answer and rephrase my question if I want to. If I say I don't want to work with the answer was not helping me, I can just remove it, and I don't have to continue my chat with that answer I didn't like. So I can change anything, which is already quite cool. But now what I will do is I say use the following as background knowledge. In the end, I can also do it without hinting that, but I will just add file, and I have bought that book and then converted that book to a text file. And in the end, it's placed in the project I'm currently in. So that is my logseek graph, which is having all my readwise notes. And then I added a resource folder, which normally is not there, but there I have added some books. And one of the books is Co-Intelligence. And we already see, if we look in the upper area, now we have 74K tokens, so 74,000, which is already quite a lot. So we were
Yeah.
using already close to half of the context size we have. And we can even make it more transparent. Here is that blue triangle. We can unfold it, and then we can read the complete book here. So it's just a text file, and it's
Yeah.
all there. So we can jump in the middle, adding AI to creative work, up and close inspection, and so on. So it's a complete book. And to make it a little bit easier to work with, I fold it in again, and then I send that request. And the question is the same, asking for the 4 principles, and it's processing. And then we get the answer. And now you have to help me if the 4 principles are right or not. But the first one is already the one we discussed about.
I know that the titles of the 4 are correct from memory. As far as the
Yeah.
descriptions, that gets into a question I wanted to talk about as far as temperature. So I'm curious, as you use this in Z, how do you control or monitor the temperature
Mhm.
setting versus creative versus precise
It's
in the
the
responses?
it's the default setting. I think you can change that, but I did not play with that. We can.
Okay.
I think it's possible in the settings.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
but then question to you: Do you often play with the temperature and see a difference in usefulness of the outputs?
So actually, I could share screen on this later, but in Tana, if you use the prompt workbench, they actually have it built with
Mhm.
a temperature dial from 1 to 256 for creative versus precision. And so it's actually what introduced me to the topic. I may not
Mhm.
have been versed enough to really come across that on my own, but it's something that is an interesting thing as you're trying to build prompt. When you build a prompt, you're basically building a tool. And so having a way to know, there's two things I always want to know, and I wish all the interfaces have it, is one, am I getting grounded generation from my source, or are you going out to the internet for me? And the other is, what temperature are you coming back to me with? And I always wish I wish because we're in the early days, but I'm anticipating and hoping that those two things will become dials and buttons that are ubiquitous throughout all the different platforms,
Mhm.
because they definitely can change the outcome, especially it seems, especially if you're searching out to the web and asking it to come back to you with things.
Yeah, but nevertheless, I think the default settings are working quite good
It does look good. Yeah, I agree.
but in
Yeah,
the end, in all the tools, I want to say, because
yeah,
if you talk to someone who is just using ChatGPT, I think they have never heard about the temperature, and
yeah,
they're using it and they are happy with the results
yeah.
in most situations. So that is a sign. On the other hand, you're totally right. Having more control is good, and then setting it to being more creative or more precise can for sure make a difference.
So, can I ask you a question about this? Like, what would happen if we ask a follow-up question about one of these things, asking it to give us an explanation, either a summary or an example, rather than asking for a quote? Like, let's say we want to know more about treating AI like a person. If we want to have a conversation, what
Mhm.
would happen if we did that?
In the end, like you expected. So then combining the knowledge shared in the book with the general AI capabilities of Claude 3.5 Sonnet. Um, why is it just adding a little bit to the question? Uh, why is important? How can it help me in my day-to-day life? It's taking a little bit time to process all the tokens, but it's
Mm-hmm.
already, because it's more or less every time. So Claude or Anthropic has cached prompting right now that your stuff can be reused to save cost and save time. But as of now, it's not integrated here.
Okay.
Yeah, and then it's answering the question like you would expect it. So in the end, you get better outputs by giving AI personas, better understand your context, your question, and maybe also being more creative. Your day-to-day life, this principle can help in various ways. Work tasks, when writing reports or emails, you can ask the AI to act as a professional editor. In learning, yeah.
So ask this question. I'd be curious to hear this question. Why does treating AI like a person actually work to make the outcomes better? Something along those lines.
I think
I'd like to hear its answer to that. Like if we asked it that follow up question.
okay. I was
Yeah.
thinking I should
Yeah.
answer it, but
Well, I'd like to hear your answer too, but I would like to
I
see
just
what
wanted
it.
to say we ask Claude first, and
Yeah.
then I can comment on that.
Perfect.
So the
Yeah.
question was, why does treating AI as a person help to get better replies from AI? Right?
Right. Yeah. Oh, you gave
So I
a very
scroll up.
detailed answer. Yeah.
Can also make it a little bit wider.
Yeah, that's great.
So language model trainings, vast
Okay.
amount of
Yeah.
human communication, understanding of how people with different roles and expertise tend to communicate. That was the answer I was going to give, because it's trained on more or less a complete internet. And if you say act as a person of this profession, you somehow narrow the space down and try to force the model to give an answer which is more common in that area of the training material. So
Uh,
number one is already good.
yeah. I think did pretty good here. I was thinking a lot about number three because it force if you do talk to it like a person, that there's going to be some
Mhm.
built-in context of who that person is that you're talking to, and that you'll probably give uh, better instructions that draw on number one and draw on that natural
Mhm.
language, like assuming that it's either an expert economist or it's your personal assistant or it's your talk therapy counselor, whoever it's supposed to be in that mode. But so it did a pretty good job.
Yeah, but I think that is what we expect nowadays, and what makes things so magical. You get good answers, and I want to connect that now to the 12 favorite problems.
Oh,
So
great!
we discussed that also in our initial call.
Right.
And in the meantime, um, I was building a custom GPT, and I can also share the link. Now you
Oh,
should
excellent.
see the browser. And to be honest, I did it today because I wanted to do it since quite some time, and I procrastinated. And thanks to our call, I was
Forced
pushing
you.
through,
A deadline forces action.
um,
Yeah.
and it was really so. I really like to chat with that thing. And maybe the standard ChatGPT is already quite good. So in the end, I didn't do much magic. I was
Yeah.
putting in the learnings from Tiago, who was picking up the concept from Richard Feynman,
Right.
the famous physicist. And I think you know the story, but we can start. So is it big enough? Maybe a little bit bigger. We can also just start with asking it for what are 12 favorite problems and why is it important. And why Or they important.
And this is your custom GPT that we're asking
Yes,
right now. Yeah.
exactly. So in the end, would also be interesting to ask the same question to Claude, which we could use in that. But I just wanted to highlight that, and I can also share the link that you can play with it or share it even afterwards. But yeah, to summarize, we could read everything, but I think both of us know quite good what the 12 favorite problems are. And in the end, short story behind is that Richard Feynman was having these problems always in his mind, and everything he experienced, he was somehow trying to connect to his favorite problems. And while doing that, or with doing that, he was finding a lot of solutions to really difficult problems. And won also the Nobel Prize. But also a lot of other important discoveries which were done by him. And in the time today, I think it's even more important because there is so much information. We already mentioned the books, but there are also articles which are super interesting, and we cannot read everything. And
Yeah.
maybe there is a way to help us to understand what we should read or could read to maybe answer one of the questions we have in our mind. And
I found it really helpful. There's probably a psychological or neurological term for this, but if you, I rented a car last time I went on a trip, and after I had rented that model of car, um, after I'd rented that model of car, it's all I saw on the road. I saw that,
mhm,
I noticed them
mhm,
everywhere. So it's kind of
mhm,
like what you train your mind to will shape what you see and what you hear. So having those 12 favorite problems means that those are now my filters through everyday life, where not only your active mind but your subconscious mind can be pulling those things out there that might have some connection for you. And I mean, in that sense, I don't think you could overstate it. I think it's a brilliant approach in a world with so many distractions, of training your mind to see and notice things that you wouldn't
mhm.
otherwise see. So I love it for that.
Yeah, and totally agree. And what we have seen is just a general explanation, and in the end, it's already then asking, "Shall I help you to craft your favorite problems?" And I say yes, but how can we start? And it's then guiding me in a few directions how we could start. Kind of stories from your childhood. What do you think about larger themes? Yeah, in the end, a lot of maybe already too much to get started.
Hmm.
But in the end, you can throw anything at it now, and it will help you to phrase a good question or a good favorite problem. For example, I did that before, and I was thinking about how can I build my personal brand without spending too much time at
Hmm.
it. Just one example. And
Yeah.
even a typo now in, but even that does not make a problem. And it's making it
Yes.
more concrete. How can I do it with just 3 hours per week? How can I use automation and delegation? I think that are important points, especially in the age of AI, if you want to optimize your time spent. And one thing also Tiago is teaching is to making it counterintuitive.
What does that mean?
Um, some friction in it. So you want to have A but also B, and somehow that normally is not working. In the end, it's how I phrased it, it's already somehow counterintuitive. If you want to build a personal brand, normally you have to spend time, and I already made it counterintuitive by saying, okay, I don't want to spend a lot of time.
So you putting a constraint in it.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, exactly. And then it's guiding you and personal brand by using automation and delegation while spending just 3 hours per week. And yeah, maybe I just take this one, and then I say I like brand and educating, adding a little bit of personal touch. Others about generative AI. Then I like more automation. And then see what it does. I think now it should remind you that you put it in your own document, even giving you a little bit more, maybe too much to read right now. And I played before with it, and what also is then quite nice, copy this question to your list of favorite problems, because I think that is important. That is what you try to do, and what I also did then earlier. So I updated my favorite problems, and then you can just say topic switch or another topic I'm interested in, and then you can dive into that one. And now we can just have a short look. So that is what I defined today, and they are quite detailed, I would like to say. How can I create unique and engaging AI content that sets my newsletter apart and turns subscribers into loyal readers who share my work? So it's not just, in the end, I started with, okay, I want to grow my newsletter. I want to increase my reach. But then in the discussion, I was making it more concrete, because I don't want just a number. I want people who really get something out of my work, and want followers, because that will also make growing easier in the future.
Yeah.
And yeah, in the end, we don't have to go through all the questions, but what I'm building up to is, if we go now to that again. So we have that file here, but in the end, what we can do, so just adding again the file command, and then my favorite problems. So it's adding now this file. So how can I create that? That is what we just have seen. And what I'm asking now is, can the book Co-Intelligence help me to get insights in one or multiple of my favorite questions? If yes, tell me how, and give a short summary. Yeah, in the end, like you always do it, just natural question, and
Yeah.
sending it then to work. So in the end, we have now the complete book and my favorite problems. And as expected, that book, because I have a lot of questions in the AI-centric area about automation, personal brand building, how can I use AI? And first is then creating unique and engaging AI content for your newsletter. Book is discussing the AI topic, so I will for sure learn something out of that. I was going into digital note taking and knowledge capture. So what we do right here, or discuss right here. It's also touched by Ethan Mollick. Information processing, synthesis. He's mentioning the Centaur and Cyborg. I remember that from reading it.
Yeah. Yeah, in each of these, it looks like there's some direct quotes that were valuable. Like up above, it said, treat AI like a person, but tell it what kind of person it is. I
Mhm.
remember that phrasing exactly, which again gives me comfort that this is not hallucinating, that
Mhm.
this is actually giving some useful um, some useful insight uh, connected from the book rather than just verbal fluff.
Yeah, exactly. And it's nowadays quite good. So
Yeah.
it's it's well known that if you provide a long context, so normally you would think, okay, that is so much information, it cannot really make sense of that. But the state of the art models from OpenAI, Anthropic, and also Gemini from Google, besides others for sure, but they are all quite good in getting that information out of a large body of context, and that is really amazing. So in the end, what we see here, we can chat with the book now. So I don't want to say I will stop reading, but this feels yeah, way more productive to already just have that discussion. And at least it's a good yeah, possibility to prime yourself. So search for the right book to read, and then if you know already to some extent what to expect, it will help you to get that information out when you then really read it.
What I like in what you're saying too is there's this idea of using a book for what you need it for, and you don't necessarily have to read a book cover to cover. That
Good.
that we don't watch shows or listen to content that way. We jump around looking for the pieces that are going to help us with what we're trying to do, and that's another thing that with that liberty, not only doing it with AI, but how you pick through it. It's a different way of going after what you're trying to get from the book rather than feeling like you have to start at the beginning, read till you're done, and then reflect.
Hmm. Excellent. Did you see what I just did based on your comment?
What chapter should I read? Oh, that's
Exactly.
oh, that's nice.
And then it's pointing me directly to chapter 3. So yeah, maybe then as a follow-up, we can now ask what is written in chapter 1 and 2. Why do you think they are not relevant for me? So in the end, one thing, I was just providing only the favorite problems. You can think about that even in more detail by providing way more background about you. So if you're open to share with a cloud-based AI a lot more information, you can add in the tokens which are left, yeah, a very detailed description about what you know, what you have read, how you think about the world, whatever. You can, yeah, in the end, give way more context about you, and then relate what we just do in a better way to that knowledge.
I think that's worth stopping on to think about for a second because what you just said is um, it has a lot of possible uses. I don't think we've people have really thought about yet. Is that for one, what you have up on the screen? You've loaded a book and you've loaded your 12 favorite questions, and then you're having you're having you're having AI go or a language model go back and pull from both contexts to get you to a specific outcome that you want. Another thing I'm thinking that you could do with this that people need to think about, you almost need to flow chart it like here's these different pieces I'm going to pull from. Another thing you could do is if you had a personal reading journal of the books you've read over the last 5 or 10 years, and you had that, you could load your reading journal and ask it for looking for correlations or missing pieces or connections between things I've read that might have questions or answers that tie to each other. And another thing you could do is if you were in the middle of writing a book on a subject, you could load the book in here in your context window at the same time and say, where does this book either correlate with things I've written, or where does it challenge or contradict things that I've written so far? And
Mhm.
these are types of interactions that I'm not quite sure those are entirely possible just for humans to do. It's like a whole higher order level
Yeah.
of reference and thinking that if you watch old Star Trek opus episodes, Data on the old Star Trek show could
Mhm.
probably do that, but we're
Mhm.
not we're not set up in time and space to where I could get full access to one book I've read and another book I've read and get that type of cross reference. And so it's a whole new level of application that these are the types of things that make AI really interesting. Not the fact that they could act like a famous person or you can make funny pictures with them. It's like this I we need to come up with a name for what this there needs to be a term for what this deep level of instant cross referencing actually is, because I think if people got a vision for that, that a lot of people would start getting really excited about that possibility.
Super interesting. Um, and how do you read? If you read, do you take notes while reading?
I do, and well, for now, so I have a new way that I try to read now is
Okay,
that
cool.
I try to push anything I read into a text file, so because I'm anticipating activities like this, and I also want to highlight the book in Reader, and that I want
Mhm,
to have access to all my Readwise Reader notes about the
mhm.
book that then come into my knowledge space. I buy it, just for the record, for this recording. I buy every book I reference. I've purchased everyone, and it's with the Creative Commons or the fair use licensing. So I'm not suggesting here that people rip books or use.
Same for me.
Yeah,
So, but in the end, to be honest, I have spent way more money on books than ever before, even if I didn't
yeah,
read them, because I can already work with a book like we have seen it right now.
yeah,
So before I was more or less buying a book and trying to read it. We all have books we bought but never read. But I think now, if I'm able to use a book like that, it even does make sense to buy the book and try to understand if that can help me now or maybe it can help me later and have that knowledge somewhere accessible. And
and
what? Yeah, go ahead,
I
Aaron.
was just gonna say, I see you have a big list over here on the sidebar now.
That are not the books. That is what I was relating to
Yeah,
when you were talking, because that are all my Readwise notes. So I'm also reading, yeah, mainly digital right now. So I have a few physical books left, and then I started to make comments on the first side, like Alex and Books is suggesting. But yeah, mainly Readwise, and there I make my highlights, my notes. Also reading everything in Reader right now. And I didn't do it because I also cannot add all the files right now. But in theory, what you were pointing to with cross referencing and what I was saying before, like providing more context, I think there is a huge value hidden by providing all the notes you have taken before, or at least make a selection of which ones, because as of today the context window is limited.
yeah.
Um, but in theory, there should be possible to add more or less everything I have, and that is my exported Readwise library. What we see here.
And what I saw
Um,
in there too, it gave me another thought because I saw podcasts. And
mhm,
so now if we talk about you're writing a book, let's say, you're very interested in Ethan Mollick on a book, but then you also have access to notes or transcripts from podcasts that have happened. And
mhm,
so this idea of not only between, going between different books, but the original source doesn't have to be written word, it can be spoken word as well. So between like lectures and podcasts and talks and YouTube videos and all these different formats of ideas can start being stitched together through your perspective, through your own personal perspective of whether you call it your 12 favorite problems
mhm,
or just one thing on your mind, and then go glean. See, because in that sense, we're not asking AI to create something. We're just going to ask it to look for something and then give us an abstract or a summary of those different pieces and let us go dig to the next level and continue our thinking. And that way we're not spending any of our or very little of our mental energy being expended looking for stuff. I mean,
mhm.
as a project manager, I'll tell you, I probably spend 20% of my time looking for stuff. not actually work, just looking for stuff. And I'm pretty good at what I do. And so the vast majority of people in a lot of areas of knowledge work, I would say they probably spend 50% or more of their time just looking for stuff, or eventually giving up and then just kind of making up and re-summarizing what they'd already had access to in the past. So from that type of context, my mind is just pinging with all these future possibilities of what that could mean.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think it's well known that in the professional life, a lot of time is spent by looking for information and searching it, and we all can yeah, think of one or multiple situations where we were, even if we think we are organized, not finding a piece of work we have done before.
Yeah, or a quote, or that somebody
Yeah,
wrote about this thing, and if I could find it, that would just be the perfect. I know that would apply well to what I'm trying to work on right now,
yeah,
and
I think
that's
it's
a
a great
gap I
point.
would love to have. I would love to have AI fit in that gap, because
Hmm.
the reason why is because its capabilities today would be perfect level of skill for that task. It doesn't even need to improve anymore towards
Hmm.
singularity or sentience to be powerful as my helper in letting me think. I'm not asking it to really do too much thinking on it or processing on its own.
Totally right, and I think that is already one of the things which, to some extent, we have, and it will get even a bit better. But the systems we already have today, if you use them in the right way, it can already achieve what you were stating. Because the needle in a haystack problem, that is finding in a large amount of context what you're looking for, is, yeah, more or less perfect. And we already talked in the beginning about the context size. And if I switch to the Gemini version, I have even more. That is multiple books I can put in, or all of my notes for sure, and books on
Yeah,
top, and then I can yeah, let it search what I'm looking for. And what you were describing, that is one thought I was having also, yeah, quite some time ago, that yeah, one thing it can change totally is yeah, the search of stuff, because it's just better in finding information which I try to describe. So it's not needed to be one-to-one worded like the search we use for quite a long time. So
yeah,
it's semantic search. It's getting way better with generative AI.
yeah. One thing also I'll share that I found, if we're talking about things that are available now that could be exciting, they don't require any more advancements. Um, some certain types of proofreading of documents that it can perform now are well beyond what we normally do. I use Copilot at work. That's our shop's
Mhm.
accepted tool is the low Copilot, because it has better security, and because you can have it all just locked in on your server base and not going out to the web. So but I'll write very long, kind of complex proposals. Sometimes a proposal that's 30 pages in length, and they're for technical engineering, and there's a lot of detail and pulled in from multiple sources. Multiple people on the team have to put in their portions, and so I just run the command in Copilot on the side of the Word document, and I say, uh, "Read this document and let me know of any logical discrepancies or contradictions." That's all I write. It's not a
Mhm.
very complex prompt, and it'll come back with it'll like here, for example, it'll say, in this paragraph you entitled the header as guidelines or recommendations, but in the body of the text you use the word must. So I suggest that you either change this header to read requirements, or change the body of the text to use permissive language. And when I have to do a lot of proposals, that's the type of level of detail I would never have time to go back and find that type of thing, which it's well beyond the realm of grammar editing, but for logic editing, that these are kinds of things that you can do now that would have a um, maybe it wouldn't make a difference on whether I won the proposal or not, but in the terms of once the project was underway, there could be real arguments that happen under that. You said that this was You said this was required, but it was under a section that said it was recommendation, so we don't actually have to do that. There's pieces that, like in the Toyota method of putting out a better product of your thought work, ends up with a stronger, more cohesive, consistent, error-free um, product that you're putting out as a form of your work. That I'm really excited about running that prompt on almost anything I write at this point, just because it doesn't
Mhm.
care whether it was a 1 page or 100 page. It'll spit it out in no time.
Yeah.
And the bigger that bulk is, the bigger the payoff is for that stuff.
Yeah, totally agree. So I think that's a great use case where we already have today, yeah, the advantage if we use the new possibilities.
Yeah, cool. All right, well, where do you want to go next?
I don't know. So I just stopped sharing to look in your face again because otherwise you were in the dark, at least for me. So that's also quite nice. So we already covered a lot. So we talked about yeah,
Yeah, we
that how I use AI. So in the end, just wanted to add. So I'm using that as my daily driver. So if I start my PC, I open that, and if I want to have a chat with Claude, I do it there. So it's even beyond file editing, and yeah, it's a good option in the moment because you can use the full context size, um, and yeah, chat with Claude.
Yeah, so I'm going to put a subheader on that, and so that we can write about this later too. Is that so? The takeaway is Zed. It's not just for coding. It is a PKM tool of its own. I find it interesting how you're using that. Is that LogSeek's a powerful tool, and so you haven't you've stayed with LogSeek as your kind of note engine,
Mhm.
but you've kind of developed Zed to be almost like an API, almost like an
Mhm.
add-on for that you're referencing the same source documents with it, and then having them run together in parallel.
Exactly. And one thing I even didn't show, which is also quite cool and working for many pages, besides the file command, which is opening a file from your disk, you
Hmm.
have a fetch command, and then you can put in an URL, and then it's getting the content of that URL. So it's a news article or documentation file or URL, and then you can feed that also in, which is also quite helpful.
Yeah, so that's pretty powerful because, like, again, I'm not a coder, so I'm not writing code for my to make a living. But some of the things you did in there, because I also loaded uh, Ethan Mollick's book Co-Intelligence into a LLM for the things I wanted to ask it. But I have to tell you, the way I did it was a lot uglier than the way you showed right there, where you just have that single line show up. That's the whole book under a text file that you can expand and drop. And so that's got me thinking, if I can get used to seeing line numbers on the side column, that is, if
Yeah.
I can keep from getting scared off by that, that I might start dabbling in that myself.
Yeah. And one thing I didn't show, but we did talk about it more or less already. So we were seeing Ethan Mollick was 74K tokens. That means if you have a book of the same length with yeah 10 books, for example, you have 750K tokens. And that is already fitting or still fitting into Gemini. And then you can, for example, add 10 books and yeah, let it yeah look for similarities or topics which are covered in multiple books,
Yeah.
or even ask it that are my yeah to close the loop, that are my favorite problems. These are 10 books I have. Which one should I read and why? And then it will pick one. So
Yeah. You
we
could
can
load
yeah
could you load in the context window of your custom GPT? How many tokens do you get in the custom GPT? Could you have loaded co-intelligence uh
um,
into a custom GPT?
in theory, OpenAI is having 128K token. In practice, I'm not sure how much of that they really use in ChatGPT. In the
I
past,
see.
they were limiting that. And they use the custom info. So if you create a custom GPT, you can add reference material, and normally they don't feed it completely in with every request. They use something which is called RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation, which is looking up for pieces, and these pieces are then added to your question. So in the end, ChatGPT is doing that to save costs, because what we have done right now is already using a lot of tokens, and with that a lot of compute, and in the end every request is costing a few cents normally. And ChatGPT is trying to bring these costs down on their side, especially as they have millions of users.
Yeah, so it would be interesting if you had a single book the same length or similar length. I think we had 74,000 tokens is what we said that was. It'd be interesting to load it and go side by side to ask it things like that. But what you're showing through what you displayed there is that if we want to go further than a single book, and we want to say go with 2 books plus a YouTube video and cross reference those, we're going to need to do something like Zed to make those type of operations work, so that we have an interface where we can fetch those things and load them in directly, things like that.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, I have a suggestion. I drink a lot of coffee in the morning, so I would like to suggest a 5-minute station break, and then we
Sure.
can kind of continue and go to the next chapter.
Looking forward to. Yeah, cool.
Okay. I'm just gonna leave everything live but mute, and then be back in just a minute. Okay, I'm back. If we'd had commercial sponsors, this would have been a great time to make some money. But I do not yet have any official sponsors of the Saturday Idea Lab. So we'll put that on my to-do list. Maybe I can ask Claude AI what's the best way for me to do that.
Just going to share again, because in the meantime I was preparing what I just discussed, and we can have a look, because I think it's quite cool. So I was adding a few books. So in the end,
you're in the red up there. I see your token count.
but you will see that we will make it work. So, and that even for free, which is even more awesome.
Yeah.
So adding file, book, then I can tap complete, and then I can see my library more or less, and choose ultra learning as the last one, which I didn't read, but I did already buy it. Yet. And maybe I should read it next. We will see. And we are in the red now, like you said. And Claude is not being able to handle all these books at the same time. So you could go and summarize all the books and then put in the summaries, but why throw away information if there is an option which can do? And that is Gemini. So if you add an API key, you can use that one. And the Pro one, you really have to pay. And for the Flash one, you have 1000K tokens free per minute. So every minute I can send a request like that, which is having now more than 500,000 of tokens. I could even
Which
more.
one was that?
Gemini,
Gemini.
so
Interesting.
the one from Google,
Yeah.
1.5. And they even have a slightly updated one, but it's not there in that right now. But you can get an API key for free. And you can also play with that in AI Studio. And it's also a great option because you have free limits right now for the good model or the better model, the Pro, and the fast model, the Flash. And even the Flash, I think, is already giving you quite some good results. And what I'm going to ask now is so putting in the 1, 2, 3, 4, no, 3, 6, 9 books. Maybe we make it 10. File books and adding the slash, and then let's go for flow, which I also didn't read yet, but I was buying it
Oh,
recently
I
because
want that book.
it's a well-known book, but I was pointed to it again by Ikigai from Hector Garcia. Ikigai is a Japanese phrase, you know that, I think.
Yes,
You
familiar.
find the reason to go out of bed in the morning, and then the Venn diagram of the things you like to do, which can make money, and people need. That is
Yeah,
Ikigai. And Ikigai, I was while reading it, realizing it's very often referring to flow. And what I'm now going to ask is, just to get started, what are topics covered in multiple of these books? Start with the topic covered in most books. And
and that's pretty vague language, so I'll be interested to see what it comes back with.
yeah, we see if it comes back. So it's getting yellow, which is interesting. I think I was never seeing yellow before in that. And I didn't put in my credit card. I'm getting an error. Took longer than configured. So we can. So that is then a setting. And I think maybe it's not enough. So settings in that is in the moment a text editor.
Yeah.
And you can add, there's one setting which is saying when a timeout is happening. And maybe we just double it for the Google models and then see if it works. And maybe we just try again. So in the end, I could try right now, but I can also just remove these outputs, send it again, and then see if we get an answer right now, but we don't. Okay, last try. And then if it's not working, I will either try later again or send you a follow-up to show that it works. Now we got an answer. Hooray.
And so
Here
what changed between the two attempts?
first attempt, afterwards I was increasing the timeout.
Okay.
But I think we were not running in the timeout because it was already 4 minutes, so we didn't wait 4 minutes. And I have it from time to time if I have a long prompt, a really long input that is happening. Maybe it's because I'm a free user and somehow I was rejected in my request. I don't know, but attempt number 3 was working. But now we see it's not perfect because it's stating all 3 books explore, but not stating which books.
Ah, okay.
I don't know why. So the power of control and importance of acceptance. That is in subtle art of not giving a fuck and flow. Here it's pointing towards them, self-awareness and personal growth. But here it's also not working perfect because I was stating it should start with the one which has the most overlaps in multiple books. And here we have 3. Here we have then 2, and then we go up to 3 again. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No, naming flow 2 times. The role of purpose and meaning in life. Yeah, that is Ikigai.
So it
Subtle
really
art.
it took your vague question and it wrote these themes that
It's
we
not
have the
perfect,
number. Yeah.
but it's also not totally wrong, to be honest. And it's a small and free model, so there is a
Yeah.
better version from Google out right now, which should more likely is giving you better results. But for example, this one is already what I expected by reading at least a subset of the books and knowing the others.
And so
And
this was 813,000 tokens.
yes, it's super crazy. It was
And it was
handing
free.
over the complete box. Yes, that is super crazy that is possible today.
Okay, yeah,
And
because just so everybody knows, you don't get you normally don't get 813,000 tokens for free, or even within your plan if you're on the monthly, because they'll say you've used up all your compute. Call back later if you do some of these big activities in some of the more mediated environments where they've set it up to be more
yeah,
user friendly.
and that is also one of the things. I'm not sure if you used or are using Anthropic Claude. I was hitting
Yeah,
it there quite often,
yeah.
and in that sometimes I have that error which we have seen with the Gemini model right now. But in general, I'm using it way more intense here without running into rate limits.
Yeah.
And what I wanted to share on top, so I didn't test it, but I was listening to it yesterday and it sounds super amazing. So normally the Google models are always set to being a little bit behind. And big advantage, like we have seen now, you can get stuff for free right now. And I just opened here in the browser and I think I have to zoom in a bit to make it visible. That is Google AI Studio, which is sounds maybe like a developer tool. It's also stated in the upper left, but to be honest, you can use it even without. You sign up, you sign in then with a button press, and you can also control the temperature. That's maybe good for you,
Okay.
Aaron.
I
Um,
just, it probably doesn't change things. I just feel like I'm doing something if I move the dials around. I'm like, oh, I
but
feel more in control, right?
but some people hate control because they have to make a decision then.
I
Before,
if there's a button, I'm gonna push it to see what it does.
that's good.
That's my
That's
style.
good.
That sometimes gets me in trouble. So
But what I wanted to share, I cannot show it because the models running in here, they also have that long context size. But what you can do if you hit the plus button, you can also upload. It's when I'm hovering here, it's standing there. You insert assets such as images, videos, folders, files, or audio, and you can add videos. And that is really crazy because you can take our conversation, for example, and use that as input. But maybe that is not that impressive because we did a lot of talking about what we were doing.
yeah.
But there was Simon is his first name. I don't recall his last name. He was sharing yesterday on Twitter that he was filming himself by cleaning up his email inbox,
Okay.
and he was not talking. And providing that video was giving more or less perfect recall of all the emails he was working with. And then in that podcast, so that is the Thursday podcast with AI written in the end. The host was saying that he is using a lot of Twitter bookmarks, but the API is not really good. And he's using a lot of time to go from his bookmarks to some document which is guiding him through his weekly podcast.
All right, I'm writing that down on my board though, because you're gonna have to give me a link to that person.
Yeah,
I want to see. This is worth a whole topic of discussion
yeah.
because now you're getting into a whole topic of having an AI agent who is over your shoulder to help you capture things without you inputting it onto a screen. So that's
And what I now we have, sorry for that. I wanted to stop sharing to see you again. I was making the endless mirror. Um, he was putting in a recording of him scrolling through the Twitter bookmarks and getting a more or less perfect recall of every bookmark he was having there. And in the end, what I'm saying, you can provide video and extract information from that, which
and
is
what tool did he mention doing that with?
Gemini. So
With
the model we
with
were just
Gemini.
seeing, yes. And in the Google AI Studio, I was just showing, I can send you a link afterwards, but you will find it anyway. There you can add video as a source. And it's super cheap. So even the cheap model was really good in doing that. I will provide you the podcast link, and I also will look for the tweet about it. And sounds super impressive by providing a screen recording and extracting information out of that in a really useful fashion, and also transcribing audio, even if that is not really the intention of the model. It was also really good in doing the transcription. So super crazy.
Okay, so with your permission, I want to take a left turn into a big picture social issue with AI that you
Hmm.
got me thinking about. Let me pull this up real quick. I think this is going to be the right screen. Yeah. So I started thinking as you're pulling that up, and we went through 830,000 tokens in just seconds. I
Hmm.
started trying to pull. It's like, wait, how? Okay, I've heard murmurs about the issue with how much electricity and power it uses beyond just the compute, but the actual amount of power that it takes.
Have
If
you
I
seen the
trust,
recent news about it? Sorry to interrupt,
oh no,
Aaron.
go ahead. Yeah, what recent news?
All major players, Microsoft, I think also Amazon, Google, they were all having in the last week making contracts with existing or upcoming players for nuclear power plants.
That makes sense.
So they were all saying, or putting forward the discussion that energy will be the bottleneck. And everyone was talking about options to get ahead of that. And on the one
So here,
hand, go
yeah.
ahead.
So here's where my mind went, and I was paying attention. I promise you, but I was
Oh,
also
good.
multitasking as you're going through that exercise. We just ran through 830,000 tokens. So I asked, and I work in electrical engineering, so I should be able to do this the handwritten way. But I just used AI for it, so because we're multitasking. And the number of watts per token, it went better if I just flipped it over to how many tokens per watt. And so we got about 900,000 tokens per kilowatt hour of utilized electricity. And so then I asked, well, I know what a kilowatt hour is, but just for
Mhm.
common reference, a kilowatt hour common activity equivalent would be using an electric oven for a half hour or running your dishwasher for about a full hour. So what I'm thinking about here, and I'm an AI, I'm bullish on AI, but then
Mhm.
I think about the fact that you and I just clicked a button and did the equivalent of running a dishwasher for a full hour. And a conference that I just got back with was full of C-level executives trying to talk about sustainability for their AI for their company and their operation, and then they're at the same time talking about all these new AI things they're opening up, and I'm just like left with the question: how are large language models going to be sustainable? Like how is it actually going to be sustainable to use AI in the exciting, interesting ways that that we want to? And what it got me, I had some side conversations with a couple individuals who were AI researchers with that organization. They told me, they said, large language model style AI is not sustainable. They said, but what is going to be sustainable is focused language models or small language models that are built to do a specific thing with a more focused or a smaller token count. So where I'm going with all this is, like, in my mind, I'm thinking about, you and I talked about the hype train around AI, that we're getting towards the top of the curve. No one knew about it. Now everyone knows the wrong thing about it. And we get over the hype wave, and now everyone thinks, I'm afraid two things are going to hit. It's one, people are going to say, I tried AI and it was overblown, and they're wrong. And two, to people coming out with calculations like I just showed about, running a dishwasher for an hour in just a couple seconds. I'm curious, as we're expanding what we can possibly do with AI, how are we going to also get it into some more focused tools that use uh, a less lavish amount of power to run, because it's not a quick process to get a nuke up and firing. It's that takes a little while, and I'm just curious. I'm curious and thinking about where this is all going to go, and how we can get ahead of all that. I don't know what you're. I'm not asking you to solve the problem. I'm just curious about your thoughts.
Just shared a link to you
Yeah,
about the post I was reading today and the comment I was making, because Elon was using a phrase I didn't know. I'm not sure if you can open
you
it.
want me to pull it? I'll pull it up.
Yeah, would be
Let me
cool.
see if I can.
And in the end, yeah, just to give a different or same perspective or thought going in that direction already. It's like
Yeah,
Sam Altman also stated in a talk a couple of months ago. Yeah, maybe you can scroll up. Then we see Elon's
yeah. Let me
post.
make it bigger. I just went. Yeah, I just went straight to your
You are
post. Yeah.
muted by Elon. This post is from an account you muted.
Uh,
I
you know
didn't
what?
know
You
that you mute Elon. I was
you just
sharing.
you just found me out. I was with I still call it Twitter. All right, so it's
Oh, good.
yeah.
In the
This
end,
is still
then,
I'm still on Twitter. I'm not on X. Everyone else is on X.
oh, good.
Anyway, so
He
maybe
was
you
he.
should share that, Elon.
I can just read it. I think that
You
that
know,
will be
if he
enough.
would talk less about the current election cycle and more about
Yeah,
tech,
I
I probably would
totally agree.
unmute him.
But uh, in the end, the main thing is written in my reply, and in the end, it's not even my reply. It's using ChatGPT to help me answer. He was stating, one could consider any given civilization progress as percent completion of Kardashev. That is the word
Ah,
I defined. By that measure, we are less than 1% towards even type 1. And I was thinking, okay, what is that? The Kardashev scale.
ah,
Um, and I was then getting that definition, which I then shared there on Twitter. Um, and I think it was quite interesting. And type 1 is a civilization which can harvest all the energy from the planet.
yeah,
And Elon stating we are less than 1% of type 1. And then if we think about multi-planetary civilizations, so I think you have seen the big step Elon was, or SpaceX in the end,
yeah,
was sharing last week by catching that rocket booster. But yeah, then it's going up by harvesting the energy from the sun, and then even to the galaxy. And in the end, that is pointing in the direction what Sam Altman was saying a few weeks ago, that AI looks like not being energy friendly, but we are going in a direction where it can and will likely help to harvest energy in a more efficient way. And if we do that, it's more a little bit like paying for itself. But I totally see the critique you are placing right now. And yeah, it's the same for image generation. There was also in the past the discussion generating an image is costing so much kilowatts. Why do we do that? And also when I worked at Tomra in my time before, we do training runs in a way smaller scale than
Mm-hmm.
OpenAI and all the big companies with the large language models. But nevertheless, we are also burning energy, and very often we have a result which is not usable. And
Yeah.
also there are thoughts: is that sustainable? In the end, we then argue, okay, what we have created by putting in the energy, and maybe 1 out of 10 runs is successful. But if that run is successful and we create a new model which is more efficient and better in the recycling task we are putting it on, then in the end it is green, but it doesn't look initially like being the right path, because we put in a lot of energy and compute and get nothing out.
I think when you're saying that too, I'm also thinking about like the idea of using AI to do important things. And so I can also provide the
Mhm.
counterpoint to this argument here
Mhm.
is that we used 830,000 tokens. Let's just call it 900. Let's just round up to 900. How many books did you have referenced?
10, about 10.
So 10 books that were probably each 300 pages.
Yeah, so
Okay.
that's maybe too bright.
It's getting dark.
Yes, but
Yeah.
nevertheless, I would like to continue if you have
Oh,
time.
well, yeah, I have. It's early morning for me. I've got nowhere to be. So if you, I'll keep going as long as you want to go.
Good.
I was just gonna like so for the counterpoint, we could say, um, so each book was probably a 300. Let's say it's a 300 page book, 10 of
Mhm.
them. So let's do this. Is how long would it take a person to read and reflect on 10 books of 300 pages? This might end up kind of pedantic as long as it takes me to type and get the output here.
But
So,
normally you speak it also, right? You
oh, I do. Yeah, when I cheat, I'll flip over to ChatGPT to speak it. So let's say for
okay. Yeah, got
yeah.
it.
So I go over here. Oh wait, log in. I'll do that later. But yeah, I go over to ChatGPT because
Yeah.
I'm a PC guy. I don't have I'm not a cool person with a Mac yet. So I don't have access to Whisper, which is what I'm really jealous of. But there are some Chrome add-ons that work like Whisper in ChatGPT, and I'll go there just to type it and copy the paste over to Perplexity.
Mhm.
At some point in the near future, Whisper will be available in all platforms, and that's going to really change things. But anyway, the so it's going to give the total time calculation here. Let's say a minimum 69 days for 1.5 hours per day.
Exactly, yeah. But
Let's
many
get that.
people, including me, don't have more time for reading in a day.
That's where we're going here. Oh,
Exactly.
okay. I'll say just list the total hours.
He was doing in the top.
Oh, okay.
So if you scroll up, he was already having it
Yeah.
there. But
So
you can
a
always ask
hundred.
follow-up questions, like we all know.
Okay. So a hundred. Let's say 140 hours of human effort were take that took place. I complained about that. It was like we just ran a dishwasher for 1 hour, but we did 140 hours of human work. And
The
so that
question is,
you have to think
when,
about both those pieces, right? I mean, that can be pretty amazing.
yeah. And also, reading all the books might be different than getting on the silver plate some connections between the books, which you have to make yourself. You're reading one book, and then maybe 100 hours later, I'm reading one which is referring to with some thoughts of it, and I have still to make the connection. And can
And if you
happen, but it's not sure.
not only the amount of time, but also the span of time, because you couldn't just sit down and read. No one's going to have time to read 8 hours a day. And even
Alex and Books has the time, I think. You know that person on Twitter?
I do not, but
Okay.
yeah.
He is all about books and has a great following, and yeah, also a nice account to follow, and yeah, sharing a lot of
But
insights about books and reading books and
yeah. But
how to
even if
read.
you so just to finish belaboring the point a little bit, even
Mhm,
if someone had the time to devote to it and you had some expert person to read it, it would take them 18 days of full-time reading. And in
mhm,
the time frame, if you're working on an important project, even if you could devote the time to it, you couldn't devote the calendar days, or that wouldn't happen soon enough. So it's like I think we have to be looking at both of these high end, a high cost and a high value at the same time. It is a very high cost to use that much electricity, but it's also a very high value if you leverage that towards something that's really meaningful or important. So that kind of leads to the question: is like, for each of us, what are the important things for ourselves or for our community or for our endeavors that we can leverage this for, that
mhm,
make that high cost really
mhm.
worth it by getting that high value out of it?
I
And
like
I
that
think
thought.
that's really something that would be good for people to reflect on,
Yeah.
to use it wisely, and to lean into it for things of value.
But did we discuss the answer to your question you phrased before?
I'm not sure.
You were saying we should use AI to do important things. And we
Yeah.
discussed before that we use AI to phrase what is important for us with the favorite problems.
Yeah.
So in the end, if you have good favorite problems, that should be things which move you or hopefully also more people forward. Might it be your family, your community? It should all be things which are important. And by considering that, I think we use AI for doing something good.
Agreed. Yeah, it's not for again. I the more the visual attention goes to using it for animations and you can make a deep fake of someone. All these types of things that's a side that's getting a lot of attention. But it's why I appreciate talking with you and people
Mhm.
in this sphere, because it's really kind of, I think, getting to what's important, what the real important breakthroughs that can come from the tool, other than just the marvel of the
Mhm.
technology, is that
Mhm.
this can, we none of us have enough time, none of us have enough energy, and we're all always lacking in insight and clear headed view of big picture things. And so I want to invest in people who
Mhm.
want to use this to kind of, advance the human condition. And so it's worth trying to gather those people and encourage those kind of people, I think.
You named deepfakes. Did you ever think about possible upsides of that type of technology?
Probably not, but go on.
Mhm.
I'm listening.
Um, so in the end, what we didn't really touch it, but what I'm super bullish on, so what I really like and see a lot of value is also phrasing content in a different way
Hmm.
to use the time you have in a better way. So we already discussed the book. Reading a book is multiple hours. You don't have multiple hours. You have some
Yeah.
specific questions. And maybe my commute to work are 20 minutes, and I want to use the 20 minutes. And I can, with AI, rephrase that book, so transform it in a different type to use that 20 minutes and hopefully deliver a message I'm looking for. And one glimpse of what is possible is a very hyped topic in the moment, and most likely we have come across it. That is the notebook LM. Uh,
Yes.
Experiment from Google, which was getting recently, I think a month ago, that new feature of deep dive. So you put in whatever documents you have, PDFs, text documents, even a YouTube link or multiple stuff. And then with one button press, at least 2 days back, it was one button press. And now you are pleased because you can steer it. There are possibilities now to tailor what you are looking for, and then you get a podcast episode, which is really sounding quite good and natural, and it's a conversation between a female and a male voice, and it's sounding nice. They interrupt
Yeah.
each other a bit here and there, like we do right now, and it's sounding really good, and it's very rarely hallucinating, so it's really high valuable content. You can even put
Yeah.
in a research paper and get a conversation and can prompt it to explain it for a 5-year-old. It's awesome.
They did a showcase of that they had one of the Google reps at the conference, um, and they did a showcase of that technology. I'd already tried it once, but it was really neat to have a conversation with a lot of people who saw it for the first time. And I think like some people's reaction was like, "Oh, it's really the things it's saying are really cursory. They're almost flippant, and it's really not going in depth." But it's like it gets back to Ethan Mollick's thing.
Mm-hmm.
Point number 4 is that imagine that today's AI is the worst you'll ever use. It's like
Yeah.
if it did this much just on attempt number 1. This is like the first time out of the gate. I just read something yesterday that they now have a producer mode to added to that podcast tool, which I haven't tried to use yet.
Yeah.
But again, that I'm sure they didn't make it. Their vision wasn't today's version
Yeah.
of that podcast. It could go. I think that's what you're alluding to is that I could listen to a podcast in the morning that's specifically about a book I just read and my journal entries for the last year,
Yeah.
and putting those things together in an amazing way.
The vision which they have is that you can transform any content you have in a different format, and they're
Yeah.
just starting by text input, which might also be a YouTube transcript, and making a podcast. And what I'm leading to is that will change learning forever, because hopefully after some time everyone is realizing what are good ways he is learning. And one example I wanted to point to are the deepfakes. So
Hmm.
maybe your daughter is liking Katy Perry, and if you explain something, she's not listening. But think about it, with the deepfake technology, you can phrase that content she has to learn in school right now in a 5-minute video where Katy Perry is speaking to her and
Yeah.
explaining it to her. And with that voice and that face, she's listening and she's learning. And then you can even tailor it to use her style of saying things, her learning approach. And that will change so much. So it's super powerful if you think about that.
I think that that's great because it brings up some of the creative possibilities of combining things in ways they haven't been used before. You're making a good point because I pick on deep fakes mainly just because the knowing what's possible, it just feels so superficial. But it does. But again, that underlying technology doesn't have to be superficial. You could treat
It's
anything you see as a first pass. And I started reading somewhere. This might have been out of co-intelligence, but I was reading somewhere talking about the possibility of having a book, whether written or audio, that is actually it's a responsive story. As a kid I read the choose your own adventure books. I don't know if you ever saw
mhm,
those, but they're like short fiction books, maybe 150 pages,
mhm.
but it says if you choose to do this, turn to page 26. If you choose
Yeah.
to do this, turn to page 45.
Mhm.
And that was like when I first saw my first one, that was just like, oh my gosh, this is why did no one ever think about this before? But you think of a choose your own adventure of what could be possible if it was if it was structured and curated by the actual author of a either a fiction or even of self-help or private development or anything like that, the possibilities are really wild as far as how deep and immersive and personalized those types of things could go. And it's why I made it, like I made a post maybe a month ago. It's like I want to see .gpt as a file extension for books. I want to buy them in the format to have a conversation with them from day one. It's like I hope that the tech that people are going in that direction and that they um, work out the economics and the business model of what that takes, because that's probably the biggest thing that's stopping that is how do you how do you how do you how do you make your content purchasable and control the licensing of it, things like that. But it's a cool time to be playing with computers
Mhm.
because there's just so many different things that can be possible if people can commit the time to them and just kind of imagine what's possible and find people to help them work on it.
Did you pre-order the Ethan Mollick book?
Did I pre-order the co-intelligence or
Yes.
uh, I don't know that I pre-ordered. I think it was already out when I made my purchase.
Because if you did, you would have get the GPT from Ethan of
So there you
co-intelligence.
go. So th- I
He
so
is he is
yeah.
already providing what you were asking for,
If
which is
anyone was
quite
going to
cool.
do it, yeah, if anyone was going to do it, it would have been him. So
Yeah. But
yeah,
yeah, you just reminded me of that, and I didn't play with it, to be honest. And now I have to do a side-by-side comparison of looking what he did,
if yours
comparing it
if yours
with.
works better, you've got to send that to him and say, "Hey, here's version 2.0. Is that this is what you should actually do, Ethan? Here's a little tip for you."
Yeah,
Well,
quite
hey,
cool.
I thought now it might also be good to kind of switch gears a little bit to what the like say what the year ahead looks for you. It's like if people are watching and listening to us and they want to like get in touch with you and kind of like learn from the things that you're working on. What kind of things either do you have in the works right now or aspirationally that a direction that you want to like connect with people and help people in the educational field?
Yeah. So in the end, way too much to explore, like you already
Yeah,
might
you
think
can
of.
give us a preview.
Yeah, I just want to continue how we started. So we were starting with the tiny experiments, and that I
Hmm.
think is also what I want to do. I'm mentioning the small bets community where I'm part of, headed by Daniel Vasello, and the idea is to do multiple small things and explore, and that is already what I do and what I totally enjoy. On the one end, I think it's what you do, I do. It's trying
Yeah,
to stay ahead of the curve, see what's out there, explore that, but then also building stuff with that. What's on my mind since quite a long time, but needing quite some effort, sounding not that tiny, is a children's book,
oh
inspired by my son, who has a teddy bear, which he is totally loving. And what is in theory possible today, but I don't have seen it, it's that you take multiple pictures of that teddy bear, and then you get a 2D recreation of it, and you can use that as a vocabulary in your image generation. And then the idea is to have a children's book where then the hero is the teddy bear, and then it's tailored, so it's audience of one. And I want to try that on the one hand for my son, but also then explore if I can monetize that. So how much is the
yeah,
compute I need to do that, and then people can order it, see then the generated images, maybe with some watermarks. And if they say it's fine, then they send the cash, and we'll get the book in the mail some later point in time.
that's great. I have one for you that I'll just put this on you as here's a suggested small bet for you or a
Mhm.
tiny experiment.
Listening.
Is what if you did either a workshop or a series of setup videos for teaching non-coders how to use Zed to do the things that you showed today? Because I think there are a lot of people like me that don't work in that don't work in tech in that way that would probably really love to geek out on using those types of tools in that agile way, but might be kind of scared off by the interface. It's like if you had if you had a workshop series where there was videos I could watch and then get together on a cohort or a mini cohort, I would definitely sign up for something like that.
I was thinking about that, to be
So
honest,
just
before.
put that, yeah,
So
put that in your on your shelf to mull over, because
it's
that's
it's
just
it's already on the shelf. So in the
okay.
end,
All right.
I was thinking about it. I was thinking about it in more or less two directions. So the one you were pointing to is doing general work in it, so using it as your chatbot replacement, like we have done it today.
Yeah.
The other possible direction is build your own tool. So we are at a point in time where even without being a coder, if you are really willing to, you can build your own small programs which solve problems. Because you can, besides generating code, you can ask for explanations. And AI is never getting tired. It will answer all the questions you have. And
Yeah.
with AI integrated into your coding editor, I already used it like that. You can chat about your code. You can ask questions. Why is it done like this? Why not that way? Even basic questions like what is a for loop and why do I need it? And just stuff you might never have seen, and you can get it explored. There are videos out where a dad is showing how his 8-year-old daughter is writing a Harry Potter chatbot. Super
Yeah.
crazy. And so second direction would be coding for non-coders. And that with the benefit, you don't have to pay for a monthly subscription there. So in the end, it's a skill you can work with whenever you have time. And you don't have that $20 a month like you have in Cursor, which you have to pay, even if you're not doing anything with it. So that is option two. I'm not sure if there is enough interest for coding for non-coders, or if it's what you pointed to, using that editor in general chatbot approach, text editing work, knowledge worker approach.
Yeah, it might be a great thing to workshop. I would personally I would be in the product market fit for something like that. Myself, being a generalist, I have it I can do some interesting things with it, but it also means that I most of the things that I'm trying to read to pick up the top level or the abstract level, they go too quickly into the specialist specifics of a subject matter, where it's very few writers put out material that has kind of like Nick Miles' map of content at the
Mm-hmm.
top level to show here's here's the pieces of the ecosystem of what the programming is. And so I think something like that would like I would sign up for something like that. That would be something that would be a fit for me, as someone who wants to get some of the benefits out of it without committing to becoming a specialist in it. So
Okay. Yes, just noting that down.
yeah.
Interesting. Cool. Yeah, so that was one thought introduced by you. Then, I'm on Linux, Linux OS, so not a
Hmm.
Mac user as you. Thinking
Yeah.
about using Windows because there is a wider audience. Because I'm thinking about also writing a tool, but I think we already have now alternatives, and I'm not sure if it's worth the effort, but I don't have it in Linux, so I do it maybe anyway. I'm also halfway in. And it's again a tool which, leverages the power of the current models we have. And the idea is very simple. I write in some window anything, whatever I want to write, and I do it super fast, and instead I have errors in. And then
Hmm.
with the press of a button, in theory, it's nothing special. It's doing a select everything, copying, sending it over to an LLM, say fix grammar and spelling, get it back, and paste it back in. And with that, you can type super fast. So the first app I was seeing there was for a Mac, and I also wanted to have that, and building it then myself. And was already quite far, but it didn't work in Logseek, and that was then bothering me. That was
Yeah.
taking an hour.
Right.
But that is also one thought I'm having of building a tool. You were already pointing in the workshop direction. In the end, the main goal right now is for me also to grow my newsletter. We were seeing
Yeah.
that already in my favorite problems, because I see value in having an audience and getting feedback. And then if I share a workshop, I for sure have more signups than if I'm talking to the void for most of the time.
Yeah, well, that's great. I think that if you get to the point where you want to try, you want to test out a workshop live, that this is a platform that's open for that kind of thing. So Saturday Idea Labs. If you want to come back and do another general session, or if you want to preview a specific type of workshop, and this is the type of thing that you'd be going over in your more in depth. Sign up version, this might be a good place to preview things like that too. So,
Cool.
all right. Well, did we solve all the world's problems, or did we leave any on the table? I can't remember.
You were pointing to one problem before, or one topic before I was joining, and that was Swarm. So I was listening.
Oh yes, thank you for bringing that back up. I really wanted to hear from you on that. I'm so glad you said that. Let me bring back up my screen.
Mm-hmm.
So agentic AI, which if I go down my tiny rabbit hole, I'll stretch that back
Nice.
out. That was an article that I just saw last night at 11 p.m. and it said OpenAI has released AI product Swarm swiftly brings agentic AI into the real world. And so I instantly started thinking of you and of Zed, that it's one of the things it said in the article is that it said that it's not an application that's ready right now as a
Mhm,
public product, but that you can get the files off GitHub and you
mhm,
can start doing your own thing. So I was curious if you've heard of this, what you think
mhm.
of the general topic, and what would be a good thing to talk about, without going too far down a rabbit hole on that.
How much do you know about agents and the idea behind it?
I mean, you're better off asking how much I think I know.
Yeah, you can hallucinate if you want to. So
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
you give me your take, and then I
Aaron's
build
real.
on top.
Okay. Yeah. Aaron's real world human hallucinations. We always complain about the AI doing it. Okay. So as far as agentic AI, one of the things that came out in the article that I was reading on Reader was that there is still some anthropomorphizing happening here when we describe them as separate agents, as separate personas, but that you just kind of need to do that to talk about it. But what I heard in this article was the idea of using agents to take actions for you on websites, which for me is exciting, but also kind of frightening, that I'm wondering about AI guardrails for what it's like having an autonomous vehicle. Well, that there's going to be a lot of concern on whether that vehicle can run people over. But as far as if you know anything about this or the general topic, I'd love to hear
Mhm,
just like a taste from you
mhm.
on on
Sure.
those themes.
Um, yeah. So in the end, you pointed to they do work. So agents do work, and
Yeah.
that is totally right. And it's somehow the direction OpenAI and also others are going to, because right now we trigger a chatbot, even if there were rumors in the past that ChatGPT was reaching out first. But I'm not sure if you did hear that, but it was more or less a fake to
Mm,
get attention. And
yeah.
nowadays, you ask a question, you get a reply, you get an answer.
Yeah.
And an agent, you provide a task, and it's then working on that. To some extent, the O1 model, which we have since a couple of days, is going in that direction because it's not providing directly an answer. It's doing multiple attempts and then trying to summarize, trying to reason if that is right, and it's using more compute to fulfill the request. But an agent normally goes even a little bit more ahead and having tools available to do stuff.
Okay.
For example, you were already pointing in the reader direction. If I save a YouTube video in Reader, in the moment it's using the provided transcription as far as I know, and it's not perfect. You
Right.
could set up a so-called AI agent, which works with the link you provide. So I'm also thinking in that direction since quite some time, to using Reader as my hub to pre-process information and a little bit like we already discussed today. And you can think about a tool, can be Reader, can be something different. You provide a link for a YouTube video, and then the agent is realizing, okay, it's a YouTube video, and the first thing I do the transcription. I create out of the audio part of the video, I create written words. And that is done with different libraries. One example is Whisper from OpenAI, and then you have quite a good transcription. And then you could set up your agent to say, okay, that are my 12 favorite problems. Please, look for insights out of that content. And then you would already have quite a simple version, but an agent. So it's maybe
Yeah.
not the most complex, but you say, I can provide you a link. You have different tools. So if that link is a text, you can directly apply your AI summary, which is guided by my 12 favorite problems. If you get a YouTube link, you have to do the transcription tool first and then do the summary. And that is the basic concept of an agent. And I think Swarm is about multiple agents. So you can think about they doing the work together. You can have then one
Yeah.
agent which is only doing the YouTube transcription, and he is then handed over that task and then providing his results. And quite some weeks ago, there was a lot of speaking about a programming agent called Devon out of a Silicon Valley startup, and he was also getting a programming task and then compute time, and then he was doing stuff and then running the program. If it was not working, he was trying to fix it, and he was doing multiple attempts. And all of that are agent approaches. So you give them a task and they have compute and tools and try to solve it, and then after some time coming back with results to you.
So this is something you've been watching for before this announcement pretty closely.
So there are multiple tools which try to do that. One open source framework which is quite close to Swarm, and just to mention Swarm from OpenAI, that was also, they released it as a framework, and they state that they will not really take care of it. So they pushed it out in the world. They say, do whatever you want to do with it, and we don't take care. And then it was getting a lot of talking and voice and Twitter, like everything in OpenAI somehow achieves in the moment. And then there were even statements that they will not do anything with it in the moment. So at least not for the people outside of OpenAI. And with that, so I'm not sure. So I'm sure people will use it, will explore it, but there are alternatives which might be better. But to be honest, I didn't look into them. I didn't explore them myself. But the most common I want to point you to is called crewai.com.
CREU, CREW.
Yes, crewai.com. It's an open source project, and headed more or less by one person. Not sure how to pronounce him, Jao Maura.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if you did find it. Yeah, that's it. So I have it right open right now. And yeah, he was getting quite some traction in the last couple of months with this. And that is, I think, the closest to Swarm from OpenAI.
Interesting.
And yeah, so the idea is also something OpenAI is stating as the next step. So they want an AI which is solving tasks. You give it a task, and then after some time, you get a solution or you get a result. But like I tried to describe, you can think about it in a very basic nature.
Mm-hmm.
Like what you do right now, you save a link to Readvoice, and you get already a summary. I'm not sure if you did see that.
Yeah.
If you have
Yeah.
a
There's my
yes,
summary on the side there.
yeah, and you can tailor that one. You can have your own system prompt there, and then you
Mm-hmm.
have your own summary, and that is to some extent already an agent doing work for you. You provide a link, you get a summary.
Yeah. You're right, because it is, and it's just that it's just not doing it automatically or autonomously. It's waiting for you to tell it to do it.
It's waiting for the link, and yeah, and in the end, it's only one step, so it's a very
Yeah.
basic approach. Yes.
So like here's the ghost reader in Reader about this article that you can ask the article. I can ask the article a question.
Hmm.
Generate thought provoking questions. So let's see what thought provoking questions the ghost reader.
Yeah, I like that feature also. Or in general, the ghost reader, but also the thought-provoking questions is.
It's so hard to keep up with all the stuff that is out there right now. I almost need to just get a team of people, say you're gonna keep track of these guys, you'll keep track of them, and just have like a team of 8 people just doing a feed. Or maybe, hey, we just need agents, we just need multi agents to do that for us. To
I was pointing you in that direction. Do you need people
I
or do
I
you
I
need
was I saw the look
agents?
in your face. I was like, okay, we're already there. So wait, where did my questions go? Because I asked the did I just mess it up? I
No, I
clicked
think
that.
they are placed as a comment, right?
Oh, GPT
Maybe they
added
are in the
highlight.
notebook. Go to the notebook in the upper right. Right.
Oh, so how does the orchestration? Sometimes these end up like high school essay questions. It's the way they come up, but uh, that's no. Oh, I clicked it twice. So how does the orchestration of multiple AI agents within Swarm enhance the efficiency? Okay, that's not an interesting question to me. Uh, Ethical and safety questions. That's an interesting question. And in what ways can collaborative nature of agentic AI
Hmm.
travel planning? Okay, those last two are pretty interesting questions. Um,
I think it has the potential to, to change a lot.
I've told you before that my use case that I think I can explain to people and then get them started on easily once it's available is a personal assistant agent that has a memory that it updates based on the interactions, that it keeps track of, that there's the for the I'm using the wrong terms probably, but there's the agent I'm having the conversation with, like Chat GPT on mobile. Then
Hmm.
there's the stored long-term memory of all of our context together of everything we've talked about. And then there's some type of sentry going back and forth between what we're saying now and then curating and updating the long-term memories. That one conversation I had with somebody this last week at a conference, they said that uh, AI is like getting a it's not like just getting an intern, like a very smart intern, but it's like getting a very smart new intern, a different one every day. That you start the next day with another smart intern that you're trying to train on your personal context. So it feels like the obvious use case that I'm sure the people working on, but I could really multiply my my use of AI in interesting and exciting ways if I had a voice assistant that I could talk to on my drive in and it remembered everything we said in context with everything I said yesterday, and then keep track of our ongoing conversations in a way where if I wanted to, I could communicate with only with voice, and if I wanted to
Yeah.
do more with typing, I could do that too.
in the end, OpenAI is trying to do that, but I
Yeah,
think they are not there. So
yeah,
you have the memory feature since quite some time, but I turned
yeah,
it off because it's not working as intended, at least my
yeah,
experience. And
yeah.
then, at least in the US, you have the advanced voice mode. So
Hmm.
Europe is not there yet.
It feels like I mean, all the pieces are almost. Feels like all the pieces are there. It just make this go with this, and um, I'm sure
It
people are
is.
working on it though. Yeah,
In theory, you can put the pieces together and try to make something. But problem is the OpenAI voice mode or advanced voice mode is somehow feeling way more natural than anything else. And you want to
yeah,
have that natural feeling. You can stitch together something with an open source project which is called Moshi, but it doesn't feel right in the moment.
yeah.
It's not.
I mean,
It's
I know
having
I'm
only.
not the right person to stitch it together because I don't have the skill or the
Hmm?
time, and so I need to find the people to stitch it together and just start using it as soon as it's available.
Yeah, but in
That's
the end, it's not much
it's
to
not that
be
far away.
honest.
Yeah,
Yes, it's not that far away. And if you have that desire to use it or see the value, I'm sure others do the same.
sure. Yeah,
Um, and yeah, I don't know, but in the end, the memory feature from OpenAI is showing it's not super easy, maybe, or at least as they implemented it right now, it's not working as intended. And there are then, if you think about it, more and more questions. So how much should it remember? Should it value information you shared yesterday higher than information you shared a year ago? And it can explode somehow in complexity. If
it it seems easy because we don't think about the internal processes that are happening subconsciously to do that work, and to try to replicate that in a dead machine is I'm sure there's a lot more that goes to it. But back to our thing here, I was just curious if if it's on your roadmap to try things like Swarm using in Z. Like, would you load? Are those the right type of tools to work together? Like, would you load? Would you potentially load Swarm into Z and do anything with it,
mm,
or is that something
current
different?
current gut feeling is a no, because
Yeah.
OpenAI is saying they don't take care of it. So I would rather use the Crew AI, which I pointed you to.
Okay.
But at the same time, I totally enjoy learning on Twitter, and in the next couple of days and weeks, people will share their insights about Swarm, and if it is really good or making things better, I will read that, and then maybe think again if it's worth my time or not. And yeah, what I pitched more or less in that agent explanation, that simple thing where you provide a link and you get a tailored summary, that is something I'm working currently on as a small side project. And it's, yeah, a very simple agent, but I think it's already providing value because it's going into the main problem. I cannot read everything which I discover and think it's interesting. And nice meme you are building. Um,
I promise I'm listening. I
No,
just have one
yeah,
of
it's
those
all
cracked
good.
lines.
But I was reading a couple of days back that memes are the key to get viral here and there and get a lot of attention. And I was thinking, okay, how do I get better at building memes? And then right in front of me, you are building one with one of the famous memes I'm knowing.
Yeah, there we go. So, because we could just post this picture, and that's the whole tagline for the whole episode today. Is just that picture right there. Everybody knows exactly what we were talking about at that point. So
Super nice, super cool, love it.
yeah,
And yeah, then discovered a book about memes, but not sure if I should read it. But maybe I should just buy it and learn if I should read it by
just
chatting
plug
with
it
the
in.
book.
Just plug it into Zed. Don't you don't need to read
Exactly.
it. Yeah,
Um, but yeah, like you said, it's a lot of possibilities to explore, and I can state it's not getting easier because I have my programming history in my past, so I can do things, and I know that, but yeah, sometimes it's better if you can't, because it's even exploding in possibilities, which you go
Yeah.
more rabbit holes popping up, and yeah, and interesting times we are living in.
Yeah, that's awesome. So well, let me see. I think we covered a lot of good ground. We talked about. I think we covered enough for now. I think uh, talking about Caliber. I think that's a side trail about that we could talk later about Zed, and also artifact. I was thinking about some comparisons between Claude artifacts and Canvas, but I think that's probably worth its own. Maybe another follow up session. We can go over something. Go over those right now.
I didn't catch it totally in the beginning. Did you explore the canvas because you were
I
chatting
just
with
haven't done it yet.
ChatGPT? Okay,
I'm
I
just
can
yeah.
give you a short heads up if you want to.
Yeah, let's do it.
So you know artifacts? I think so. You use
Yeah,
them, and it can execute your code. It
right.
can render HTML and also some React, and you get that feedback, and it's changing then things. So that is artifacts. Canvas from OpenAI is yeah, sometimes compared to it, but from my perspective, my perception, it's different, because you have some interface where you have static code or text, so like the editor we
Mhm.
were having before, where you can change things and you can work with AI together in it. But if you compare the coding, I think that is the closest to artifacts, you cannot execute code in Canvas. So
Okay.
it's not running it. That is the main drawback. So you have to copy it over, maybe to that, and then you can run it there. And one thing which I don't like, you don't really get insights what was changed. So you ask for a change, so you somehow get a summary what was changed, but it's not highlighting it, and that
Is
is
this
also
in artifacts that we're talking about? Artifacts.
Canvas.
Oh, in
Canvas.
Canvas.
In artifacts, you have way more easy that you can go to the old versions, and I like the UI more. So Canvas is changing things if you ask for it, and
Mhm.
it's doing that super fast, and sometimes it's really hard to see what it changed. If you're not interested, if you just want to make it work, maybe that is enough. But yeah, in a nutshell, it's you have some like an editor view where you have a piece of code which was generated by the model, and then in iterations by prompting it, you get improvements.
Mhm.
You can also use it for writing. So that is the second part. And there you can get writing or improvement suggestions. And it's added as comments, which is quite cool. Um, and the other use case, but I also don't like that so much, is you can say, make it way shorter, make it way longer. And then it's
Mm.
throwing away everything it has. And then you have a longer version, but you don't get an easy glimpse of what was changed. So the best feature from my perspective is to get the comments on your writing. But yeah, it's more from my perspective. It's like a tech demo, and
Mhm.
it's showing the direction they are going. It's showing or somehow flexing they also can do tools. And in
I see.
theory, they showed with that they can do a writing editor and they can do a code editor if they want to. And that is just the first glimpse of that and getting, yeah, learnings from that experiment.
It's a good summary. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Welcome.
Yeah. All right. Well, we come around to the top of the hour, so I like what we talked about, and I'll be putting together um, some highlight shorter videos that we can share out too, and then we can kind of think about planning out what kind of things come next. So you've given me a lot to think about, and
Mhm.
hopefully this has been a good catalyst for you too.
Yeah, I like it too. So it was really cool. Thanks for the invitation. And I also have to think about what we discussed, especially that workshop. Have to, yeah, think about it, maybe make it. And if I build it, you are the first who is getting an invitation.
Awesome. We can do it. We can do part of it live if you want to try it out. And as soon as I get the video of this up, then we got to plug in the transcript into Z so it can tell us everything that we should do next. So
Yeah.
that could be the next step. Just feed it right back into the machine.
Just one final thought, which I totally loved. I'm not sure if you journal and if you
Yeah.
know Dan Chipper,
Yeah. Yeah. I
who
know
is
Dan
the
Chipper. I don't know him, but I know who he is.
yeah, but I also don't know him, but I like his content. And what he was doing is having his journal entries as knowledge, and then
Oh,
asking AI for a future journal entry. And even more
oh,
interesting is when he is saying when he is at the edge of a decision he has to make, he is then prompting AI with the context of his old journal entries of a future journal entry once with decision A was done and once with decision B was done, and then just reading it is giving him yeah, insights and sometimes the gut feeling what is the right decision. Super interesting.
I'm gonna have to look for that because that again, that's one of those really creative uses
Yes, I
that
liked it
you wouldn't,
also. Yeah.
because it's what it's doing is it's combining. It's not just asking AI to do all the work. It's asking AI to look at your work and then do something interesting with it that you can't think of inside your own context.
Yeah. And then by
So
consuming that, you can reflect on it and yeah, develop your own thoughts. Super, super interesting.
wow.
Awesome. Really liked it, Aaron. So
Excellent. Yeah, we're gonna have to do this again. This was fun.
sure.
I just I try to look for I try to look for things that are fun fun to do, and then try to spend as much time as I can doing them, and try to grow that. So
Yeah.
thank you for sharing so much of what you're working on, and I think we're gonna go ahead and sign off now, and I'll definitely be following up with you afterwards, and we can kind of go there. So, thanks to everybody who's either watching live or watching recorded. And this has been Saturday Idea Labs with Knowledge Work Studio with Dr. Daniel Bender, and we'll catch up with you soon.